Small World Vacations is proud to sponsor today's podcast. Their team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners and are recommended by MouseSavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars. Get your free price quote at WDWVacations.com. Small World Vacations, where the magic begins. This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, August 13th, and this is episode 295 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm your special designated hitter, host Mike Scoper of MousePlanet.com and All Ears Net, filling in for Matt Hochberg, who for some reason has come down with a bout of dinosauritis. Len Tester is also not here, as I think it's just a beautiful day to go to the beach. But fear not, we have some very, very important people with us tonight. We have, of course, Mike Newell, who has just about recovered from the stress of doing our live show this past Sunday. Welcome, Mike.
I don't think I can ever recover from those shows.
You can just hope to contain your stress, right, Mike?
But we try.
Special guest tonight on the show is All Ears Net blogger and my neighbor from about 15 miles down the road, Michelle Scribner McLean. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on board to talk about this topic. And the topic that I'm referring to is something to do with MouseFest. Now, with the recent release of the schedules for the cruise and the land portions of MouseFest, I guess it's time now to start bringing the 2000 event into the dialogue, our podcast dialogue. And what we decided to do is to talk about something that deals with one of the first events, one of the first meets for this year, and it's a meet that was spawned from an idea that Michelle and I had talked about way back in January. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Michelle to step in and tell everybody about this idea and when she first mentioned it to me and get everybody involved in exactly what it involves. Go ahead, Michelle.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, last year was my first MouseFest, and I went down. I was going to go by myself, and at the last minute I brought a friend who isn't really a Disney enthusiast. So I went down and thought it was really interesting, but was very overwhelmed by the whole thing. There was so much going on. And I realized that I wasn't really prepared for all the different meets, and I wasn't organized. I thought I would just float from one thing to another. And and I was also there with somebody who wasn't really interested. So I kind of went to one thing, and then I didn't go to 3 other things, and I just found it to be very overwhelming. And then I went to Mega Mouse Meet, and it was just, whoa. There are hundreds of people there, and I'm not shy, but I found it a little bit overwhelming. So anyway, I went home and I thought, I'd like to try that again, but I would approach it differently next time. And one of the things that I thought about is when I go to other professional conferences, sometimes they have a session for new people who are kind of new to the association. So I kind of had it in the back of my mind, and then lo and behold, in January, a month later, I was at a conference in Florida, and I made my way by myself over to the Magic Kingdom, and I was standing in line at Pirates of the Caribbean by myself, and behind me, directly behind me, the ride broke down, and I heard this very familiar Massachusetts accent, and I'm from Massachusetts, so I always say hello to Massachusetts people, but this one sounded a little more familiar than usual, and I turned around, and Mike Scopo was there, and he's there with a friend of his, and they said, hey, we're going to go get a Dole Whip, and they invited me. I'd never had one before, and we started to talk about this. So Mike thought that having a session for new people at MouseFest might be a good idea to get people oriented to what goes on at MouseFest.
Yeah, and I think it was a great idea. And while we're on the topic, I'd like Mike. I was going to ask you when you first your first MouseFest, did you have the same kind of impression on your first MouseFest as Michelle did? I mean, you were on the other side of the table, so to speak, but I was just wondering what kind of first impressions you had when you went to, was it MouseFest 2005?
Yeah,
I think
2005 was my first one. I had never gone to MouseFest before, so I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I knew about MouseFest, but I didn't know any details about it, so I didn't know what I was getting into. I just basically, my mind was to go down and record the show, so I didn't know what to expect. So when I didn't know much about it. I've heard of it, but I didn't know about any of the meets. I didn't know really about who that was going to be there. So when I went down, I basically went down because of the show, and it was a last minute. I'm talking 2 weeks out before I even decided to go. So when I got there, and I didn't know the first thing about MouseFest, and I got there, and I was like, wow, there's so much going on and so much to do. And in fact, last year was the first year that I got really in depth with MouseFest, and the fact that you don't sleep and the fact that you're out all hours of the night really blew me away. So if you don't know about these things and you go into it blind, there's a lot that you're gonna be woken up to, and it's all fun. Don't get me wrong; it's not anything bad, but it's a lot of. I had the best time last year.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, Mike. I'd like to ask both of you to answer this question. Michelle, I'll start with you. Can you give me a few thoughts regarding what would have helped you? What would have helped prepare you for MouseFest?
Oh yes, I think. I should know this as a teacher, but planning. I went on the MouseFest website and I looked at the sessions and I printed them out, but I really didn't make a plan of what I wanted to do. There's so much to do. And now when I go down again this year, and I am going down again this year, I'm going to print everything out and circle the sessions I want to go to and make sure that I sort of have a plan for the day. That would be the first thing I would do.
Okay. If you knowing what you would have liked to have had for information last year, I'd like to ask you, what do you think this MouseFest 101 or MouseFest Primer meet should have for the newbies? What would be your thoughts on what should be presented to those people who are attending MouseFest for the first time?
Well. You mean people who are already down there and going to the session? One of the things that you and I talked about, I don't know if this is going to happen, but one thing would be to have a name tag that identifies you as a new person, whether you have a red dot on your name tag, because I found that there are a lot of veterans down there. I wasn't sure who I could go to ask a question, and I would see people like you and Mike and Lou Mongello and with just tons of people around them, or Deb Wells, and I didn't know, if they're so busy, I didn't know if I can ask a question, but maybe if people who have been to a MouseFest before see somebody with a red dot, they can go up and help them. But in terms of suggestions, I think just planning ahead, trying to understand that everybody there is incredibly friendly. We're all Disney fans because we like Disney stuff, and we're all Disney people because we're so friendly, and not to be afraid to ask questions. I think maybe having some sort of a place where new attendees can ask questions at every meet, or maybe to have the people who are running the meet say, "Hey, is anybody new? Let me tell you what's going to happen here." But again, another thing for the planning too that I didn't really understand was one of the ways that you can get yourself ready is to make yourself known on the online communities. If you just go in and lurk, that's okay if you're not on any websites. But also, make some friends, talk to some people, ask people if they're going to go to MouseFest on these communities, and make a plan to say hello and see them when we're down there.
That's a good point, because it really is a social event, more so than anything else. It has turned into a huge social event, and for many people, it's their only trip to Walt Disney World during the year, and it's a time when they can see their friends who they have associated with all year in whatever Disney forum or Disney community they've been in. So I agree. Mike, I was going to ask you, but what would have prepared you better for your first MouseFest?
Wow. The one thing that I didn't see when I first got down there was the pocket guide.
Oh, okay.
If I had the pocket guide ahead of time, and that's my own fault. That's no fault of anyone else, but I just didn't know about it. that there was a pocket guide, and it listed all the events and all the different people that were going to be at these events and who's hosting what event and where it was going to be. And I had just wished that first time I had the pocket guide ahead of time to know. But I was fortunate, though, because I went down with friends. So I went down with you guys, and you guys would say, hey, we're going to this event at 3 o'clock. So I knew then when to go. But as far as additional events, I wasn't aware of any of the others.
Yeah, but I think it's a good point too, that it's great if you go down with friends, but you don't really need to if you don't have somebody to go down with, because everybody's so friendly. Even at the Mega Mouse Meet, I don't know how many booths there are. It's just I'm getting flashbacks seeing it all. It was so big, but every single person who had a booth was friendly, and every single person would take 5 minutes and say hello to you, whether they were on a podcast or had written a book, or Steve Barrett, the Hidden Mickey's guy. Everybody was just so gracious and wonderful. And I think when you see that many people, it can just be like, whoa, my goodness. But another thing I didn't realize about the Mega Mouse Meet too is that there are raffles and books that you can buy, and it's just everything you want in one gigantic room. But I think it's all about the planning. If you can do the planning ahead of time, even if you're by yourself.
Yeah, I think you're right, Michelle. I think there are a lot of little things that people don't realize about MouseFest, and I think that for those of us who have been there from the beginning, it's ingrained in our minds. So we sort of take it for granted that we have this reference to certain things, and I think that for those people who go down for the first time, I think it's important for us to help them to help them see what MouseFest is all about, and to give them guidelines. And by guidelines, I mean even saying, this is what we recommend that you do at MouseFest, and this is what we recommend you do not do at MouseFest. And by saying that, I'm going to ask both of you another question. Michelle, if you could speak to all the 2007 newbies going to MouseFest this year, what would be the very first thing you would say to them that you would say to them, don't do this at MouseFest?
Well, I think Mike mentioned how you can, it can be very late nights, and you can really, there's so much to do that it can be very tiring. I would say when you look at that pocket guide or the guide on MouseFest, pick and choose the things that you really enjoy doing, and don't try to do it all. I think doing it all, you're going to get exhausted by day 2, because really, correct me if I'm wrong, you could be going from early morning till past midnight pretty much every day if you wanted to with some of these things.
We did it.
So I would pick and choose. Definitely pick and choose your favorite things, because you don't want to come away feeling exhausted and that you didn't have a good time. And if you're too tired, what do you think?
I agree. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to do what we call MouseFest burnout, where you're trying to run to, fortunately they plan it out really well where most of the events take place in the same park. So it's just a matter of going from one end of the park to another, where you don't have to jump on a monorail or a bus to try to catch another event. So, plan where you want to go, and, don't forget you're also on vacation, so you don't want to, kill yourself trying to get from one event to another.
Yeah, and I think another thing, too, that I didn't realize is that if I didn't get to a meet, I wanted to go meet Deb Wills, or I wanted to go meet you guys, usually for most people, it's not the only time you're going to see them is at the one meet. You're not just going to see Mike Scopa at the Dole Whip meet. He's also, showing up for a lot of other things, and everybody's at the Mega Mouse meet. So if you don't get there, you're going to get a chance to chat and say hello to people other times. That includes podcasters or authors, but also friends that you might be meeting.
Yeah, I can tell you that 2003 was that was the first MouseFest. That wasn't too bad. It was 2004 and 2005 that I learned my lesson. It was getting to the point where I was trying to be everywhere for every meet, and I got so wound up that there were times when I didn't even get to sleep till 2:30 in the morning, and then I was up at 5:30 trying to do things. I would be writing, I would be going online. What I've learned to do is, and I tried this past MouseFest, is that try to get in early before midnight and not turn on the television, not go online, just go right to sleep. And that was a lesson that I learned real fast. Before we go, what I want to do is I want to tell everyone that the MouseFest 101 primer is scheduled for Thursday, December 6th, 2007. It's tentatively scheduled to start at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and go for an hour. That time may change, so keep checking at mousefest.org, the official MouseFest site. The location for the MouseFest 101 meet will be at the Magic Kingdom Tomorrowland Terrace, right near the Noodle Station, and that meet will be hosted by myself and Mark Goldhaber of mouseplanet.com. And hopefully there will be some first-timers there who will be attending and not be afraid to introduce themselves to us and ask all kinds of questions. We're there to help you. We want you to enjoy MouseFest. We want you to have a great time. And I'd like to thank Michelle for bringing this to our attention. I think that it will serve as a very, very important meet for a lot of people, and it will go a long way towards having everybody really enjoy themselves more so than they would have if there wasn't anything to prepare them for what they're about to experience. So, Michelle, thanks again.
Oh, you're welcome, and I think you guys are all very welcoming, and I think it'll welcome more people into the Disney community. So I'm glad that it's going to happen. Thanks for moving it forward.
And it's going to happen sooner than you think. MouseFest is only about 5 or 6 months away. So everybody get ready. And that's it for today's show. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to questions@www.today.com. For Mike Newell and Michelle Scribner-McLean, I'm Mike Scoper, not Matt Hochberg. And we'll see you next time. So long.
Small World Vacations is proud to sponsor today's podcast. Their team of 40 agents are authorized Disney vacation planners and are recommended by mousesavers.com. They're dedicated to your dreams and your dollars. Get your free price quote at wdwvacations.com. Small World Vacations, where the magic begins.